Hi folks, top of the hour, so welcome. I see there's a number streaming in the door, and welcome to the third Eyesight Lunchbox webinar. Do the numbers, training around Microsoft Excel, and sponsored by our friends at Citrix Go to Assist. My name is Hayden McCall. I'm General Manager at Eyesight, and I'll moderate today's session. Be rattling through a few housekeeping bits and pieces just to get everyone familiar with how the tool works, and just as people stream in the door. So the key one is that there's no need to take any notes. You'll get an email with a link to the recording, and you'll be able to watch at your leisure. So don't be worried about furiously taking down notes that you won't be seeing Trevor's presentation. You'll get a recording, and you can also forward that recording around the place. People will need to register to access it, but they'll see the same recording of what has gone on. And the main thing is to have you all interactive and getting lots of questions in so that we can address your specific concerns, and that we get lots of questions so we can address those. Lots of people in the audience today, in the hundreds, so we may not get to everyone, but we'll certainly try. So if we just have a look at how the questions pane works, it's on the screen in front of you. And just to get familiar with that, if people can just fire some questions in. I see Terry's already found that and send us a little note. But if everyone can just think about the pain points and things that they want to get out of today's session, specific areas where they want to get an answer to a question, or something that they find painful, want to learn more about, then please do just fire us in questions, and we amongst the organisers that are helping out today will try to address those and get those into Trevor and amongst his presentation, or perhaps for later follow-up if we don't get to them today. So go ahead and just fire up your questions, and we'll watch those as they come in. Thanks, Leslie. Quiet bunch today. Come on, there must be some more questions out there. I'm sure Excel is full of so many difficult, tricky little things. Okay, we'll introduce Trevor Carman as the presenter today. Trevor's from ACE Training. He's the Excel guru and senior technical expert with ACE Training. G'day, Trevor. How are you?
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Hayden.
So just quickly, one more slide before we get into the presentation. Just the details around the subway. Not everyone will get subways. It's just the first 100 attendees that registered. So if you do miss out, that'll be the reason why. And a thanks to ACE Training for picking up the lunch today and covering us for those subcards. So without further ado, there's also an exit survey as you go out of the webinar. Just a few questions that you'll answer. I'll cover off what those are about towards the end. So I'll hand it over now to Trevor, and just engage with lots of questions, guys, and remember you will get the recording. Okay, Trevor, I'll just pass the controls across to you.
All right, thank you. I must say I have to thank you for choosing the photo that's taken about 10 years ago. I haven't got a lot better. Right, hopefully...
the last presenter that was...
see the Excel screen?
Yep, that's popped up now.
Ah, good.
I called the last presenter.
All right, now
sorry, you carry on.
That's right. I'll start out by saying that I'm not a PowerPoint person. Excel's the best product in the world as far as I'm concerned, so there's not a single PowerPoint slide. There's not even a topic list. I'm just going to go through. I'll try not to go too fast because I get very excited about a lot of the topics in Excel. But basically I'm going to start with some basics and build up, and the best stuff is at the end, so probably best to hang around for the full hour if you can. So let's get into it. Now I'm sure many of you know that you can move around with arrow keys like I'm doing now. But a good way to move around quickly to speed that up is to use your control key, and I call it vary down. And so control down will take me to the bottom of a list of names, for instance. And vary up will do the same thing. It'll hit the bottom and then go right to the top. If I go down a couple of times, when it doesn't find any data, it goes right to the bottom of the whole sheet. So it's a good way to see how big a spreadsheet is for various people. So I'm just going control left, control right, control up, and those keys are very underused. In the same theme, going to the start and end of rows, and this is not just Excel, but if I hit my home key, I can go to the start of a row. Obviously, if I want to go to the very top right-hand corner, then I can speed up the home with a vary home, which is control home or vary home. Likewise, I can go to the very furthest right-hand corner with a vary end or control end, and that's the furthest place that I've ever typed in the spreadsheet. If you've ever typed a little bit further and you need to reset the end of your spreadsheet, the only way I found to do that is to completely remove any of the rows, columns that you might have had there, completely remove any of the rows that you might have had, and then you need to close and save your file, and that'll reset the endpoint to the furthest place you've ever typed. So there's some quick ways of moving around. Vary down, vary up, vary across, and vary home, control being the vary key. Now, generally these days, most people have seen the problem of column headings scrolling away. I'll just go to a bigger sheet. So my January, February scroll away. When I go to the right, my names scroll away. And so we'll very quickly just cover this off. If I want to freeze the top panel above me, or the left-hand panel behind me there, I really need to choose that cell there. I could choose a row and then it would freeze just the top panel above me, or I could choose a column and it would do it, but to do both I need to be in that cell there. And it's simply a matter of going to the view panel these days and clicking on freeze panes. And now when I scroll down, let's just try that again, freeze panes, and I'll just freeze panes. So when I scroll down now, you can see that these aren't disappearing. Likewise, when I go across, I don't lose the names. So that's a nice handy way to see someone's total on the screen. So that's view, freeze panes. Now you can put splits in. That tends to give you multiple scroll bars, though a bit complicated for people, and really is used for folding, say, two pieces of your spreadsheet together. So there we go. Now, picking up on that theme, here's an interesting new feature in version 2010. So here I've got a classic database, my headings are scrolling away. Now what I can do, if I'm in the middle of a block of data like this, that's completely squashed up with no blank columns and rows, I can go Insert Table. And it says, well, is this the data? And yes it is, I was in the middle of it. You might have to say you've got a little header row there, and when I go OK, you can see it sort of formats it a bit and puts some auto filters on. But not only that, when I just scroll down automatically, notice that the column headings have just popped up to where the ABCs are, just automatically, just by scrolling, and they pop away again. I also have this ribbon that's popped up, and I've got the banding on, but I can turn it off. I can just sort of bold the last column there, or the first column. I can even band the columns, all the rows. So you can very easily do some interesting things. And you can put on a total row. So without me doing anything, I'll just tick that box and I've got a nice grand total. I can click on the grand total and I can say, look, give me an average, give me a count. So I thought that's quite a nice handy little feature that you can do fairly easily. So that was with an insert table. Now if I want to get back to normal, one thing I've found is it doesn't remove the formatting, so it pays to choose a nice sort of white style before you do it, and then on your little table ribbon you can say convert back to a normal range, and then all the magic is gone and you're back to normal. That's a nice interesting little feature there. Just to go back to moving around quickly, let's say I wanted to select my database. Now we know that control down takes us down, But if I want to select that on the way, I just hold down my Shift key for selecting and then start moving around. Now I can move around slowly with a single arrow, or I can go Control down arrow to move around quickly again. So all of my movement keys will help me select along the way. I've
Trevor,
just been advised there's a wee bit of a lag.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I will just slow down a bit. It's probably the old internet here in New Zealand. Doesn't tend to be the fastest at times.
Yeah, not usually an issue.
Right.
But
Now, just some other ideas if you're trying to select text. There's a lot of draggers out there, and then they start dragging it, and the very fast machines of today can sort of scroll for miles before you have a chance to catch up. But just thinking outside the square, if you go to the furthest end of your spreadsheet first, so I'll do that by going Control End, and once you're at the end, you can then start dragging backwards, and you're never going to go past A1. So that's just sort of a tip in being a logical person, really. Another thing you can do if you're inside a little spreadsheet, you can just press Control Asterisk, and Control Asterisk will select the current data block that you're in. So another nice quick key there, Control Asterisk. Just before I leave these simple things, just to further clarify what Control down arrow can do, here's a database that's a little bit broken up, and when I go Control down, it'll find the start and the end of every block of data. So it finds the beginning of the next block, finds the end of it, so on and so forth. So if you are getting big data imports and you've got some blank rows, effectively your Control arrow will help you find those gaps, and then you can sort them out in some way. Right, at this point we'll have a little play with autofill, and what I'll do is go back to a spreadsheet. We might do some formulas, some absolute values. So I've got a whole lot of salespeople, and I've got their total sales for the year, and I'd quite like to know, I mean, these figures don't mean a lot. If they were percentages, I'd be able to gauge, how relevant they were to the company. So we'll just do a percentage. Now I think of these, there's lots of different percentages you can do. I think of them a bit like your test mark you used to get. So I might have, I'll start with the old equal sign. So I've got 36,000 out of, and now I need to scroll down to the grand total. So I'll just find that down here somewhere. Here we go. And so let's just hit enter and see what that is as a percent. And well, 3.5, not too bad. Now if I start filling that down with the autofill blob in the corner, as I call it, yeah, you can see it's drifted off the grand total. So we've got, as usual, Excel is doing it pattern copying. So it's now taking the one on the left of me, and it's dividing it by the grand total, and it's moving off that as we copy down. So how do we correct that? Let's try that again. I don't usually remember up front. I see the problem as I do it, so we'll start again. So equals, what is, sorry, let's start at the top. Equals, what is that number out of the grand total? And then I go always in my head and press F4. And so as I say always and press F4, the dollar signs appear in there to freeze it. And then I can just hit enter, return to the top, and then I can start filling that down, and it's not going to move off that grand total cell of N37. And some of you may not be aware that as long as you've got a solid block of cells on the left of you with no spaces, you can double click on that blob and it will copy all the way down. Alright, if you had a gap along the way somewhere, let's take that one out. A double click, sorry, we'll take that one out, we'll try that again. A double click on here will only, well, it looks like I've got lucky there, must have hit a space, but auto filling down may get stuck at your blanks there. Now by the way, that doesn't work if you're trying to go sideways, it's just a handy feature to fill down. Now furthermore on that autofill, there's some interesting things you can do. Just dive over here. So if I'm starting to type my Januaries and my Februaries, etc., you can just click on one of those cells, start dragging across, and away it goes. Now it works with the full day as well. You can start wherever you like. So let's do a March, and we can drag that across, or we can drag it down. Doesn't really matter, and it works with days of the week, full word or 3-letter abbreviation. Right, no problem. In fact, those series are built in, but you can type any data series you like. So if I start doing a 2, 5, 8, well, I'm going up in 3s. Now if I just grab the 8, it'll copy 8s. But if I highlight the 5 to the 8 increase in the middle of the cell, so if I highlight the gap of 3, then start filling down, it picks up that pattern. One thing comes to mind, 6-month warrant of fitnesses. Cars in New Zealand tend to be pretty old, so we check them every 6 months. Control semicolon puts in today's date, and if I try and pick up the next date and type that in 6 months from now, it'll be the 16th of May, I suppose, /12. So again, if I highlight the gap of 6 months there, then grab the autofill blob, and I've got a nice pattern there. Column's not wide enough, I can highlight all those columns, double click the right hand edge of one of them, and I get a best fit on all of those columns. So that's just a sample of autofill. You might even have a bunch of names that you want to fill across. So any names, labels, headings, doesn't really matter, you can highlight those. And if we go to File, Options, and Advanced, I forgot to look this up, we can put our own custom lists in. Here we go, Edit Custom Lists, right down the bottom of File Options, Advanced, Edit Custom Lists. So you can see why the days of the week and things work, and we've got a few other ones that have been added. So I can import that list of names that I've already got. And so now when I type any of my team names, good old Finch, again we can fill that across or down, and away we go. Not to mention check numbers, purchase order numbers, that sort of thing. So the options, there's quite a few. It tells you where you're up to as well. Can be a bit of a nuisance at times. You might be typing something like room 1, and you'd like to copy room 1 down the cells, and when you start to copy it down, you see that, oh gee, it's done the series thing. So if that happens, instead of dragging with your left button, just hold down your right mouse button and drag down instead, and it will ask you a question. Do you want the old series thing happening, or do you just want to do a straight out copy? And you can even do things with formatting. So yeah, I just want to copy room 1. Thanks very much. And so that's how to drag and not have it do the series thing for you. So there's a quick look at autofill. And that's probably it for sort of our basic sort of formatting and moving around features. So what I'll do now is we'll just flick through a little bit of formula linking. I'll just open up a couple of other files. Now, all of the staff here put in these expense claims, but I'd like to link to a standard bunch of expenses. So I've got another file here. I'll just choose both of those and open them both up. So here's my standard expenses, and I'll just flick back to the first employee. So instead of having some static rates there, I'd really like to link to the other spreadsheet. And usually when people say, look, they don't usually say to me, how do you do linking? They normally say, how can I pull in these numbers from another file or another sheet in the file? So if I've got the other file open, it's just a matter of going, well, I'd like that cell to equal, then I just browse to the other file, click on the cell, hit my enter key, and I've just pulled in that number. So we'll try that again. I would like that cell to equal this file here, that cell there, and enter, and there we go. So if I linked all the staff expense claim forms to this one, it's a very easy matter of when the Inland Revenue get a bit kind to you and they up the expenses, you can type in the new value, and that'll shine on through to all of your employee expense sheets. To do another sheet in the spreadsheet is very easy. You can just equal any other cell you can see, or any other sheet, any other cell, and no problem. It's getting a bit slow for me there, and back we go. All right, apologies for the lag, everybody. I'll try and slow down and contain my excitement, as I said at the beginning. All right, Let's have a look at some conditional formatting and colouring. It's not something I generally do, but it's a little bit intriguing. Might just flick to ice cream, and I'll just do a quick data sort on this. We'll sort them in descending order. Sometimes people ask me, they say, look, oh, do you not need to highlight? And no, it's a wee bit dangerous actually highlighting if you're going to do a sort, because you might leave a piece out or not highlight the whole sheet. And if I do sorting in this case, I'm only going to sort this little block, and I can easily corrupt my database. So I think it's a little bit safer just to click on whatever you want to sort by. If you want to sort by date, click on a date. If you want to sort by a sales value, click on a sales value. And the whole row does move, as long as you don't have any blank columns in the middle or blank rows. So as long as it's a tight block of data, that's the only rules Excel has. Now let's look at how we could sort of highlight the different sales values here. So I'll just click on the first cell, hold down my Shift key because I'm selecting, Shift to select, and then go very down with Control down arrow. And so over in my Home tab under Conditional Formatting, we can do these sorts of things. So we can have some gradients, and you can see how it's sort of really highlighting some big sales and fading off for the small ones. Or I can go to color scales and do sort of similar things. Or icon sets. So that'll give me a range like green is good at the top through to black at the bottom. There's all sorts of interesting things you can do. And even if I sort my data back by date, we can see that the good sales stand out and the not so good ones also stand out. If you do like putting these sort of gradient color scales in, you can even sort by them. So let's have a look at sorting. So I'm sorting by sales value, and I'm really interested in sorting by color. If you're a bizarre person that wants to do this sort of thing, you can. And I'd quite like to, sorry, that's a font color I've got there. And I'm not sure, oh, whoops, forgive me, I actually need to sort by icon set. So sales value, the cell icon, and let's put the red ones on top. And so I'm now effectively sorting by colour. So some pretty bizarre and amazing things Excel can do these days that are generally totally relevant to the data gurus amongst us. But there it is, you've had a little look at that, and there's all sorts of fancy things you can do in there. Anyway, so we don't run out of time, let's move to some of the high-powered things. So I'll just get to the beginning of the spreadsheet here. Right, so we've had a data import, and we'd quite like to mail merge out of this later on, but someone's glued all the names together, and it's going to be very awkward to write a standard letter going Dear Peter, Dear Cindy, when that's all glued together in one cell. Far better to have first name in one cell, last name in another, street, suburb, city, etc. So I'd like to split those names up, and Excel will do it automatically and plop it next to me. So the best thing to do is to start with a blank column to start with. If you're not sure how many pieces you're going to get, maybe a few blank columns. And I'll highlight all those cells again, Shift for selecting, and let's go very down and pick up all these names. So from the Data tab, it's text into separate columns. A bit like when you're importing a file. Now it's clearly not fixed width. It might be if I had product codes and I could then choose a particular point to separate the data, but this is delimited or separated by some punctuation there. Now it comes up with tab. Well, that's not what I'm seeing. I reckon there's a comma there, so I'll just untick tab and say, well, try comma, and it says, yeah, you're all right, but not only that, there was a space after the comma. So even better if I do space, otherwise I'll have a leading space in there. So that's looking pretty nice. I could do some formatting if I needed to, but that's all looking pretty standard. So we'll finish, and it says, do you want to replace the destination? And that's the spare column here where it's going to throw the first name in. I've already moved my data out of the way, so that should be fine. And there we go. So very easy to separate data there. Let's go the other way. Let's make up some interesting phrases that might help us in a mail merge. And at this point here, I'll introduce probably 4 formulas that I've used over the years. They're like gold. The formulas are left for the left-hand piece of the cell, right for the right-hand bit, middle to pluck out the middle piece and the length. And maybe just to show you how this works, we'll try a few of them out. So if I go equals left, open bracket, and choose a cell, and then say, look, give me 3 characters, or in fact, let's go for 4. And there we go, we've got Pete. So that's fairly straightforward. Let's try the other one, equals right. And again, if these were product codes, it'd be pretty interesting. And we'll just get 2 letters from the right-hand side there, and I can pluck out the ER. Often you throw length in if you want to get all of the letters except the last 2, and so you're often nesting length inside the others, but let's just have a look at length, or len as it is. What's the length of that? There we go, and you could fill that down. And with a bit of auto filtering, we could then say, look, let's just filter out the product codes that only have 3 characters in, and then we could fix those codes or do various things with them. But we'll try something a little bit fancy. So I'd like to get the left-hand part of the first name. In fact, I only want the first initial, so we'll get just 1 character. And next to that, so that's an ampersand, I'd like to have a space. So I'll go quote marks, space, quote marks. If you just have spaces around your formulas, they tend to be ignored. So I'll put a space as if I've typed it. And next to that, I'd like to get the last name. So let's see what we get there. P. Allens. So that's good. So I could have a phrase later on of, Dear P. Allens, how are you going? So I'll just do that one more time. Equals left. That cell there. Give me 1 initial. And next to that, give me a space. And next to that, give me the last name. In fact, I could even put some text in the front here. Let's put a dear space and glue that up with their first name. So there we go. And a double click on there to fill it down. So you can left, right, middle. You can do all sorts of text manipulation there. That might be handy. Now let's try our mail merge. And what I'm best to do here is just have my headings in the top row. So I'll just delete that little header up there. So I've got my headings in the top row. Probably should put a heading in that one. First name. And might not be quite right, but that's salutation. Probably should have picked an easier word to spell. Alright, so let's just flick to Word. Oh, here we go, here's a nice handy button. And these days you'll find mail merge under mailings. And pretty early on we see start mail merge, so let's try that one, and we'll start the old standard letter. Nothing seems to have happened, so that's when you say, well, let's go and hook into the database. So we'll use an existing list. And I'll just find that Excel spreadsheet. I might just remind myself to go and save that. Where were we? Let's just save my changes there first. Yeah, okay, we'll go for copy of employee sales. Alright, so back to browsing for that file. Copy of employee sales. It's asking me which sheet. Well, sheet 1 there was the one I want. And let's just have a look at the recipients. Oh, there we go, and we've picked them up nicely there, and that's the column that I generated with my left-right formulas. I can exclude a few people. We don't want old Colin in there. And I can now start typing my letter, so dear, space, and I can insert the first name field that I generated. Now if we want a sneak preview there, we can just have a sneak preview, and we can cycle through a few rows just to make sure the spacing is okay. I usually say to people, when you're doing mail merge, always turn your sneak preview off so you know your standard letter from your merged letter. As you might be aware, you can actually merge them all together into one big giant document and then personalize a few of them. So let's create that document. There we go, so if I scroll down you can see that each person's on a different page. I still have the standard letter over there, and it's pretty obvious as long as you don't have your sneak preview on. So you can make a few comments, like here we could say, oh yeah, you know, PS, how are the kids? So there we go, there's a bit of text manipulation, mail merging in Word from Excel. I firmly believe that Excel is the best place to have your data. Right. Let's go back to Excel. So that's text to columns and concatenation. Just another issue I've had a few people throw at me over the years is sometimes when we import data, might end up with a few gaps. So let's create a couple of gaps. I'll just delete one there, delete one there. But might type a space in this one. Now it's a little bit hard to pick up spaces, namely because you can't see them. So what might be useful here is on your Home tab, sorry, I'm just juggling my screens around here. At the end we've got a find option, and we can find some special things. Those conditional formats I did before, they can be hard to find, and that's a really good way to find conditional formatting cells and to alter those conditional formats. But I'm interested in finding the true blank cells, so let's see what happens there. And you can see it's formatting's not perfect, but it's only picked up those two as blank, so I can sort of start saying to myself, wow, that looks like it's got a space on it. So that could be one thing you find handy. Another way to approach it is just do the old-fashioned find and replace. So I'll just make sure I'm not on any particular selection. Click on replace, and I'm looking for perhaps a space. It's pretty hard to tell, and I'd like to replace with a nothing. Now, if I do that, I might find the spaces in all these words here. So I want to make sure the entire cell is a space. So let's see if I can find it. Looks like I've got a bit unlucky. We'll just give that another go. So there's a space, and there it is. It's now picked up that blank cell, and I can replace that with a nothing. And we'll see if there's any more, and it's now not picking up any spaces. So that's some of the tools you could use to perhaps find some data that's not ideal and tidy it up a little bit. Right, I'll move on. Conscious that time's ticking along. It flies when you're having fun, that's for sure. So let's have a look at something a bit more sophisticated. VLOOKUP is a commonly asked about thing. So I'll open up an old order form that we've got here. Here we go. And people tend to enter product codes. Over here I've got a database of product codes, descriptions in column 2, what we buy them for in column 3, and what we'd like to sell them for in column 4 with a slight markup. So back to the old invoice sheet. So if I'd like to type in a code and go and find the particular product in this list here, I can use this formula equals vertically lookup, because that's how my database is arranged, open bracket. So the value I'm looking up is the code that someone enters here, comma. Well, where's the table of, or database? Well, it's just over here. Now, I've actually highlighted those cells and named them, because when I copy this formula down later on, I don't want it to drift off that database. So I can't remember the name, but if I press F3, that's it. That becomes my names box, and that's what I call that little database earlier on. And I want column 2 for the description. Need a bit of a memory there. And let's just close the brackets, that's all I need. And we see in fact that that was a dog jacket, and let's just copy that formula down. And there we go. So if I type in CP 223, we know that's a dog's jacket. Ooh, that's a little bit interesting. 223, 223, one says that, one says that. If we go and have a look at the spreadsheet, what it did is it looked for CP 223, not CP space 223. So it went all the way down, couldn't find a match. So it said, look, you know what, I'll just bring back the last one. That might not always be ideal. Now, that's good if you're doing category searches like tax brackets, where you've got from 0 to 35,000. And here in New Zealand, you tend to get taxed at about 62% for that. Not pretty. So often we might want to find brackets. But in this case, I did want an exact match. So let's just have a look at that VLOOKUP formula. If you want exact matching, you do need to type comma false on the end. So let's copy that down now. And you can see, rather than going to the bottom and finding the last code and saying, oh, that'll do, it's saying, look, I just can't find that number. So that's something I want to know, and then I can say, oh no, that was the wrong code. It's a CP space 223, and it goes, oh yeah, that's fine. So there's we'll do one more. Pretty powerful formulas. VLOOKUP equals VLOOKUP, open bracket. So there's the code that I've entered. Please go and find it in this database. So I named it earlier. That's F3 for the name box. Click on the name, and this time bring back column 4, our sell price, and just do an exact match, which is the word false. And there we go, and we can fill that down. Now if you don't want to have NAs on your spreadsheet, you can put an if formula in front of there. Well, let's do one of those. So if that cell there equals a blank, quote mark, then show me a blank, quote mark. Otherwise, go and do the VLOOKUP. We'll just close that if statement there. Now I know that I can probably spend an hour on each one of these topics. It's pretty fast stuff, but just to show you the sort of things that you can do. So now we have a nice tidy looking order form that we can use whether we have codes or not. So there it is, a quick whiz at VLOOKUP. Okay, we're just going to try and delay the lag by altering our networking here, folks. Alright, we'll see if that speeds things up. Right, let's look at a couple of financial functions that sometimes we get asked about as well. So I'll just go to my, sorry, I'll have to open up another file here. And we'll go for data table. This is a pretty popular little spreadsheet, this one. And what it's doing is we're putting in a purchase price for a house, putting in a 20% deposit, so we minus those two and to get an amount that we need to borrow at a particular interest rate over a certain number of years, so there's just numbers in there. And it'd be nice if we could figure out our monthly outgoings. So how do people come up with these formulas? So it's the PMT function, or payment function. Let's open bracket on that. Now the first thing I need is the rate. Now if I want to have monthly payments, I need to enter all of these things in months. So that's an annual interest rate. So to get that into months, I'll just have to add on a divide by 12 at that point. The next thing I need is the number of periods. Now it's 25 years, but I need to get that in months because I'd like my answer in months. So to do that, I need to multiply that by 12, comma, and then the present value or the amount I'm borrowing, and that's all I need. My future value, I'd really like to be 0 when I paid it off, and the type is whether you're paying at the beginning or end of a month. But let's just finish the formula at that point, and so that's how you generate your monthly payback. Let's say we wanted to do a fortnightly one. I'll try that one more time. So it's equal PMT. So my rate this time, that's my annual rate, but I need it in fortnights. So I now need to divide that by 26. The number of periods I'm going to pay it back over, well, it's 25 years of fortnights, so that'll be timesing by 26. And of course I'm borrowing that amount again. And so now I've got my fortnightly outgoings to service that mortgage. And you can see the effect of compound interest rates there. So as they tell us, you're far better to pay things off more frequently because you'll pay back a lot less and a lot quicker. Let's try another formula. So from the bank's point of view, if they're investing that money to us at that rate, what do they end up with? So for this one, we'll use the future value formula. Now again, at a particular interest rate, so we'll take that rate there, and we'll imagine I'm paying back monthly, so again we'll divide that by 12 to get a monthly interest rate. The number of periods I'm going to invest my money for, so I'll try and invest over a 25-year period, so convert that to months again. and how much am I putting in my bank account monthly? Let's try the old 19. Well, in fact, let's try 900, a little bit more than that one there. I should have put that on fortnight. Let's do that, make it a bit more fun. Convert everything to fortnights. Here we go. Oh. And you can see that you'd be a double millionaire. So quite interesting formulas, future value and the mortgage payment formula. Now I have gone and checked those little cards they have in the bank, and it seems to be the exact formula they use. I get the same answers. So there we go. Let's just extend it a wee bit. Sometimes you see people changing values in spreadsheets over and over and over, just doing a bit of what if. And sometimes I say to them, look, you know, there's an easy way to try a whole lot of different numbers in there instead of going 0.06 and 0.07 and 0.05, etc. What you can do is set up a little data input table. So that formula there, we're just linking to it with our equals u. And then I've listed all the values that I would really like to try in that cell there. So instead of me typing them all in, I've just typed them all down there. Then we can do this. We can just highlight that little block, and it has to be in that arrangement. The formula has to be on that side. And then we can go data. And under what if here, hidden away, we have data table. And it's really saying to me, look, do you have a row of different values that you want to try, or a column of different values? Well, I have a column of different values. And it's really saying, into what cell would you like to chuck those in? Well, I was typing them all in here manually previously, so let's just say, yeah, look, just chuck all those in that cell there. And it says, well, look, here's all your answers that you would have got simultaneously. It's a far easier way than me just typing them in one by one. Let's just check one of them, see if we get the same answer. Looks pretty good to me. Now, you can actually do a double inputter. So same thing again, and we've got that formula in this corner this time, and I've got different numbers of years that I'd like to see chucked in there, and different numbers of interest rates that I'd like to see chucked in there. So I have to highlight the formula, the different values I want to try, and again it's data, what if, data table. So what row of values have I got? Oh, they look like years to me, so I need to chuck those into the years cell. What column of values do I have? Interest rates, and I'd like to throw those in the interest rate cell. So there we go, another one of those little bank cards you can pick up, all the options. And if you're saying, oh, no, well, I'd like mine for 20 years, that's no problem. Just put 20 in, and my interest rate's 0.0535. Well, you can get that too and see all the options. So there it is, data table. Quite a snazzy one. A lot of people don't even know it exists. Right. Time is flying away, so I will switch to some pivot table and graphing measure, I think, at this point. Let's bring up old ice cream. Now, apologies, guys, this is going to be a quick whiz round, but anyway, that's all you can do in an hour. So here's a nice little database, and one of the things I can do under my data menu is chuck in some subtotals. Now the first thing you need to know with subtotaling is to sort your data first. So I'm going to sort by sales rep. So we'll click on that, and we'll sort those in order because that groups or clusters them together. And once I've sorted by a particular column, I can then go subtotal by the sales rep, what I've just sorted by, and I can add in a formula, sum, count, average, and I can just pop that in. So now I have some subtotals, and I can see one level of detail, the grand total, two levels of detail, that's the subtotals and the grand total, or all levels of detail, and you can collapse various panels there. If you go back to subtotals, you can remove them all. So there's quite a few things you can do there. Let's look at pivot tabling, because that's just absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to insert a pivot table. And I started off in the middle of the database, so I can just click OK, and it brings up a blank sheet. Now this all looks a bit scary, but really all you've got to do is say, well, start with the grand total and say, look, there were some numbers there, just tick of that box, and it knows to throw it in the value area there saying, here's the grand total. Well, look, let's analyse the totals by brand. So I'll just tick brand. It says, okay, well, here's a breakdown by brand. And I think, gee, that's cool. Let's chuck in the flavours as well. Now, it's going in one direction at the moment, and that's probably not the best way to look at it. So let's drag flavour and say, look, can you go across the top there? So we'll just put flavour up there, and there it is. Now, a little bit long and skinny. Let's just switch them over. Let's put flavour back here, brand up there. Yeah, that's a nice shape. And generally, I've got no idea what I'm trying to summarise, but I fluke one eventually and print it out, and everyone's happy. Now let's tick a few other things as well. Let's throw city in the mix. Bit back to front, we'll put city on top of flavour. There we go. And so I now get a breakdown per city. You can collapse and expand things. Now, I'd really like Auckland up there, Wellington up there. I'll just click on Wellington, and I'll get the bottom of that box and just move it up. So that's a better way of sorting it. There are various sortings you can choose, but they haven't provided one that sorts our New Zealand cities in order from North Island to South Island. What I might do as well here is put in some of my own manual grouping. Now I'm going to highlight Auckland and Wellington, right click and just group them. And that first group is clearly North Island. And I'll group this one as well, even though it's its own group. And we'll call that South Island. And I've effectively added another field here called City 2. I can right click over here and look at the field settings and rename that and call it Island. Of course, being Kiwis, we're fascinated about our islands. There we go, never let me type. You know what I mean. And so I could then throw Island up here. And anything in this box here, you can effectively do some filtering, and we can just knock out the South Island as we tend to do in the north, and there we go. So some interesting things you can do. Let's just throw city up there for a bit of filtering. Let's get flavour out of the way. Let's click in some dates. We'll just turn that around a wee bit. So I'm now analysing by brand by date. Now every individual date, not very useful. Let's right click on one of them, group, and let's do a monthly and a yearly grouping. And look at that, we can double click and collapse those years, or we can expand them, look at the dates. You can sort them in different ways, newest to oldest, and all manner of things. And once you've had enough of doing pivot tables, you can say, look, let's just let's chuck in a pivot chart as well. Where are we? I've lost my place. Here we go. Throw in a pivot chart. We'll do an old 3D bar graph. And whatever filtering we do here, the graph is going to respond. So if we say, look, let's just put all the islands back in, and let's just turn on or off a couple of cities. Let's get Auckland out of there, and it's filtered the data and the graph. So there it is. Insert pivot table, and away you go. Drag and drop and have some fun. Time's almost up, so just to finish with a little bit of fancy graphing. Just for the last couple of minutes. Now you don't have to have a block of data to do graphing. You could highlight, say, just 6 months, and using my control key I could just get this person here. And the key thing is just make your strips the same length, and I'll also get that person there, and I can't undo it if I make a mistake. And there's another one there as well. And F11 is a nice quick key to come up with a graph, so there you go, just those 3 people, just 6 months. And there it is. And of course I can spend an hour on graphing. One thing I did want to finish with is tricky, and I will honestly just try and do one more minute, and then we'll hand over for questions. So here's a particular piece of data here that if I went to graph that, we'll just insert a nice 3D bar graph. Now these numbers are so much smaller than these numbers, I can't really see what's going on there. So if I go to format, and it's a bit hard to even click on these red bars, so using format I can just choose that club series, those small numbers there. So I've now selected them, and I can even format that selection. And the very first thing at the top here, although it's not doing it for me now. It's a nuisance. It would say put on a secondary access there. It's a bit of a shame. What I might do is just change graph type on that data series first. We'll change chart type. So just for that series, we'll put a line graph on it. It might be the 3D it wasn't happy with. Well, I didn't want to do it for that. Let's try that again. So just that particular series there. And we'll try that for a line. So I'll put one back to a bar. And I've now got bars and lines mixed. I want that on another axis. So I'll just try that one more time. Club series. We'll format that. And there we go, series options secondary access. And I'm now showing clubs up that side with bars. But I've got my total members as a line. So you can do some nice things like that. Well, that felt like 5 minutes. Apologies about the lag, but I'll now attend to any questions that it might have been there. And I'm sorry I was so excited I forgot to even look. But are there any?
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. Look, that was great. I have to admit I was fully absorbed in some of the things you were doing there. Try to catch up, so I'm going to have to come back and watch this too. Hey, I think there were certainly some questions on pivot tables and VLOOKUP. I hope that the basics we managed to get through there were enough to satisfy that. There were some questions on formatting, and I know I use the paintbrush quite a lot, but just formatting of cells around dollars and percentages, and then consistently formatting that across ranges. There was some interest around doing that.
Yes.
Maybe just quickly cover that off.
Right, can I address that for a couple of minutes? Yeah. In fact, I didn't want to do it. I thought, oh no, I ran out of time, I'll leave it. So, actually what I might do at this point, I'll just bring up a brand new one. Right, so what I'll do is I'll put in a, say a positive number, 24.68, and we'll put in a negative number. We'll put in a 0, and we'll put in another number. Here we go. Sometimes get those sorts of numbers, don't we? Now I'm going to format column A. So I'll click on that little shortcut to the old-fashioned format box that we've been used to. And under custom, you can type in any code you like. And you can get an idea of the sort of things you can do, but I'm going to do this. Now with any format code, there are 4 sections, or up to 4 sections. The way positives will be displayed, the way negatives will be displayed, the way zeros will be displayed, and the way text will be displayed. Those are your 4 sections. So to do positive numbers, I'm going to put the text AUS in front of a $sign, and then whatever the person typed, whatever the person typed, whatever the person typed, and finish with the ones column, but no decimals allowed. The next section after the semicolon is the negatives by default. It's just how it is. Now I'd like to have those numbers in red, so that's in square brackets. And I don't want to see minus signs, I'd rather see a curved bracket. And I'll put a $sign in, and then whatever they type, and I must have 2 decimal places. The hash means if they type the number in, display it. If they don't, just have a gap. But if you don't type in any ones or tenths or hundredths, I'm going to put a 0 there anyway, otherwise it looks a bit odd. Next to that, this is how I'm going to display your zeros. With the text, 0. Just to illustrate. And lastly, if I want to determine how your text will be displayed, I'm going to show you this instead. You must enter a number, not space whatever they typed. So the @ is the placeholder for the text that was entered. So let's see what this format code would do to all of these types of data. There it is. So positives are displayed with AUS and no decimals. Negatives get formatted like this, zeros like that, and if someone does things like that, you can sort of tell them what to do about it. So it'll respond, that column, whatever I do, just putting in some noughts. And the good thing about doing this is that I haven't typed in any text. So sometimes we format after the word, you can format kilometres, things like that. So I can now do mathematics with it, and we could convert that to New Zealand dollars, by dividing by an extremely low number, as it sadly is at the moment, and get the equivalent in Kiwi dollars. So here it is. Format in your text rather than type it in. Right. How was that?
Yeah, good stuff. So just yeah, paintbrush, and I'd be interested to understand the limitations of paintbrush, and I find it useful, and I find a lot of people don't use it as powerfully as it can be used.
Yeah, well, let's put a few numbers up there, put an alt down there as well, for the text. So if somebody said, gee, that was a really good format code, that will take me about an hour to type up. Just to show you what it looks like here. So remember, there's 4 sections, semicolons. Watch out if you have a semicolon on the end. If you go to mention the section and don't, it'll effectively blank it out. So I don't see the text. Anyway, that was a really good format. So all you do, any format at all, bullet points, numbering, you name it, if you do one click on your format painter, you get one shot at reformatting a cell, and it turns off again. So let's pick up a really good format code from somewhere. This time I'm going to double click the format painter, and I have unlimited shots at painting, or I can drag and do whatever I like until I turn it off my cell. So one click, one shot. Double click, multiple shots. To get it back to normal, pick up a normal cell, double click it, highlight, and back to normal. Don't forget to turn it off. Here we go.
Good stuff. Now, it's quite a specific one here, just across tabs within a worksheet, and wanting to print a range consistently across those tabs. Can you just run us through how that works, if it's possible?
By tabs, do we mean sheets?
Yeah, yes.
Print a range across, not too sure. You can print all the sheets. I see what you're saying, sort of like a 3D range, one at a time. That's something I might have to go away and have a play with, actually, so rather than waste time now. But seeing as you mentioned it, here's something I've been trying to get home to people in recent years. Before you ever print anything these days, go and use this page break preview option down here, or view page break preview in an older version. And as soon as you click on this, it'll come up and say, look, you can alter your page break if you're not happy. And the sort of things you can do, often it'll split your data, not quite in the first 6 months, last 6 months. So you can say, look, just split it there, Excel. And if it's missing out just one row, there's a whole extra page for that. You can say, no, just down you come here, and you can just manipulate those page breaks and get a much better effect. So I find that really useful. If at some point you do move your bottom line, you can get into a bit of trouble there. If you're back in normal view, and you start inserting a bit of extra data, and your data then goes outside that print range, sometimes you'll find that it'll never ever stretch and go past that range. Now the only way I've found to ever fix that, instead of having to manually stretch it down every day, is to drag that bottom line right to the top and let it snap back to automatic mode. But apologies about printing across sheet tabs. I'll obviously go away and have a play, but we have your details, and I will get back to you with that one. Okay, great. Brian, I think it was. We'll come back to you specifically on that one. I guess we're pretty much out of time, and it's an ambitious task to unveil all the features and functionality within Excel in an hour. Trevor, maybe if you could just hand controls back to me, we'll just finish off with the exit poll and close things out. Just a reminder, folks, you will get a recording. Everyone will be able to run through it again, and apologies for some of the slow response times and things with screens not quite keeping up with Trevor's talking. So just on the exit survey, when you go out of the webinar today, there'll be a survey to fill in. We'd really appreciate hearing the feedback that you've got. You'll be able to confirm your address. If you haven't, when you're registered, given us your proper address, just make sure that you've given it correctly there so that we can send the subcards out to you, or the first 100 of you. There is also a couple of deals in there from the Citrix guys. There's a free trial, so you can have a play with some of the products. The GoToWebinar product we've been using today is a GoToMeeting. It's more designed for one-on-one meetings or team meetings, I think up to 25 attendees. And GoToAssist, so from a remote desk you can go and help out
someone sitting in another office and help them through how to set up a pivot table on Excel, for example. And there's also a deal with GoTo at the moment. The first 2 months, if you do go ahead and buy it, your first 2 months is free. So there's an opportunity just to say yes, you're interested in that, and to learn more. So yes, GoTo Assist and GoTo Manage were the sponsors for today. The numbers on your screen there and on the exit poll. If you're keen to have a look at these products and get some of the benefits, then that's all there in front of you, and take advantage of the deals that are around. Now there's also just one thing from ACE have mentioned they've got a training session coming up with Microsoft, or at Microsoft, on the full Office 2010 suite. It's free training, so a very good deal. There's a checkbox on the survey as you exit. Just let us know, and ACE will be in touch with the details of what's involved there. So thank you everyone for attending. Thanks to Citrix, thanks to ACE. The next one for the Lunchbox series won't be until the new year in February. We're getting into a little bit of managing the managers is going to be the theme. So into the HR department and looking at some of the management techniques and tools and tips for taking care of teams and performance management and feedbacks and so on. We'll get more on detail on that out to you. If all attendees, we will include on that email whether you're an iStart subscriber or not. We'll make sure that you're subscribed so you get up to date with that. I think that's pretty much it from me. The subcards will be mailed out to the addresses you provide. If you don't get it, it meant that the first 100 people in front of you got in and registered faster than you did. So next time, register more quickly. Thanks everyone, and thanks very much to Trevor. Well done. I really enjoyed that presentation. We'll shut down now and catch up next time. Cheers, Trevor.